Hello everyone, this is part 54 of What If Naruto Passed the Genin test, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Gaara, Sasuke called after the Kazekage, coming up behind the shorter man in the dimly lit hallway of the Palace of the Sand. He stopped a few paces short of Gaara and waited. Gaara stopped as well but refused to turn around. I have no time for this, Uchiha, said Gaara in his usual monotone. Don't you have something else you should be doing? Sasuke had already taken a deep breath and braced himself against the chill running down his spine. Gaara, you're stepping past your authority. You can't order someone to kill themselves for you. I've ordered Sakura-san to do no such thing, said Gaara, an edge evidencing itself in his voice. You're sure not discouraging her? Sasuke barked. I've ordered her to do no such thing, Gaara repeated. Now is there something you need? For you to tell Sakura to call it off, you snake, Sasuke growled. I need you to get off it and think of some other way. Gaara whirled round on Sasuke, his patience and calm shattering in an instant. Uchiha, I have neither the time nor the patience to deal with you and your dissension, growled Gaara, stalking forward like a desert lion. What would you have me do? Asked the Kazekage as Sasuke shifted his weight and pushed his shoulders back. Look at our men, said Gaara. This makeshift alliance we've stumbled upon is our last gasping chance. The Kazekage's voice lowered to a guttural whisper, and it's a fool's chance. You can't deny it. What good are hundreds of soldiers in the face of people like your brother? What good would thousands do us should Itachi, or someone worse than him, take the field? We'll have him outnumbered. Naruto, his sisters, you, and I could take him while the rest of the ninja deal with the larger battle. And you suspect we could win, said Gaara, his tone almost mocking of Sasuke's opinion. Uchiha, let me be clear. The thought of Sakura-san's S makes me sick. I have no more desire to see her S than do you. Gaara's breath came in low draws and his eyes seemed to flicker in the dark. But we both know how terrible your brother can be, and worse, we both know that there is probably someone even worse than him out there. He's not head of Akatsuki, just one of its ranking members. But for the sake of everything we have to pretend like he's the worst we'll face. We have to pretend that we can win if we want to have any chance, and if Sakura is willing to make as noble as she is for the sake of everyone else. Sasuke reached up and ran one hand through his raven hair, glaring at Gaara as his stomach turned. If you don't order Sakura to call this off, I'm gone, said Sasuke. I'll leave and never come back. Hell, I might even defect here and now and let Akatsuki know exactly what you've got planned so they'll know exactly how to counter it. Sasuke's face had begun to redden and his voice was strained. You would never do that, said Gaara, his tone acid. Sakura and everyone else you cared about would be killed for sure if you did. Sasuke's eyes widened with anger and he gripped his hands tightly behind his back, one white-knuckled grip holding the other. The already dark hall became even more oppressive and the air thickened in both ninjas' lungs. I'm never going to forgive you for this, said Sasuke, seething quietly. There's nothing for you to leave unforgiven, said Gaara, his calm returning. It's no fault of mine that Sakura is willing to S herself for the greater good. Get fed, Sasuke hissed, turning his back and walking away. Gaara watched as Sasuke walked down the hall and disappeared behind a corner. His gaze narrowed and he turned away but stopped short and looked over his shoulder as he heard a horn sound in the distance. That would be the Earth Daimyo, said the cage. He's running ahead of schedule. Groaning and staring intently at the ground ahead of him, Sasuke ignored the sound of the horn. His eyes clouded with anger, the Uchiha stopped and set his back against the sand-colored wall. He slid down the rough surface and sat against it, letting his head drop into his hands. Could this be any worse? He asked himself rhetorically. Could what be worse? Sasuke looked up quickly, though showed no outward sign of the jolt that had shaken him internally. Ino stood beside him, looking down at him curiously and offering him a hand up. Nothing, said the Uchiha, ignoring her gesture. The whole world's going to hell. That's all. Ino sat down beside him, leaving plenty of room between them, and looked over. What's going on specifically? Aren't you supposed to be confined to your room or something? Sasuke asked. Ino shrugged. I got bored and it's not like there's anyone around to actually enforce anything. Tell me what's on your mind. Sasuke shook his head but began. Gaara's gotten the idea into his head to use all of these allies that came out of thin air to counterattack Akatsuki. They're probably planning out where to engage the enemy right now and they want Sakura to open all 8 of her celestial gates when Itachi shows up so she can K him. Oh, that sounds… Wait, Ino blurted, her head already spinning. Go over this again. Some detail might be nice too. Sasuke took a breath and began explaining, adding specifics where he thought it necessary, what had transpired recently, from all of Tsuna's allies appearing magically, to Sakura's revelation and Gaara's mad plan. When he finished, Ino was staring at him in disbelief and shaking her head. She spoke softly. I've been confined to my room and all this happened more or less in a day. Less than a day, said Sasuke. It's all gone up in smoke in the last few hours. The Uchiha let his head drop. Ino sighed and scooted closer to him and put her hand on his shoulder. You have a funny way of looking at things, she said. Gone up in smoke is the last phrase I'd use to describe this turn of events. We're fighting a losing war, Sasuke barked. Akatsuki and the Crane probably still outnumber us. They have more powerful ninja. And knowing Itachi, they probably have some plan to catch us in the ultimate trap, make us think we can win so we commit all of our strength to a decisive battle and lose it all when they close us in a snare. Now, to top it all off, even if we win this battle, Sakura will still and it's just the beginning to what's likely to be one long and costly campaign of reconquest. Tell me how being pessimistic is funny. Ino smiled in the gloom of the hall. You're acting like you can't do anything to help. Her voice was motherly. Sasuke, you're one of the strongest ninja in the world. You could probably go toe to toe with Itachi if you had to, and together you and Naruto will come out smelling like roses, I'm sure. She hesitated and then continued, well, maybe not roses. Blood and grime is more likely, but nonetheless together there's nothing the two of you can't do. Sasuke's grimace held but his face softened. I don't want to lose anyone else, he said. We're ninja, said the Kunoichi. Unfortunately that's a part of life. Still, being ninja also means we have the power to change life and make it what we want it to be. SC. The Earth Daimyo had a much younger looking face than anyone at the blocky table sitting in the middle of the hastily constructed command tent outside Tsuna would have expected. Even so, he had the countenance of a man whose face might break if he ever smiled or altered his expression too quickly. As soon as Gaara had finished briefing him on recent developments with the arriving armies and Akatsuki's movements, however, the daimyo's hairless face twisted momentarily into an expression of utter confusion. I must say, said the young daimyo of the Wind Country, addressing his counterpart from the Earth, you've done a masterful job setting all this up. The Earth daimyo hesitated for an instant before his expression became absolutely unreadable. I have a very competent network of spies and agents, he said. And I've been working to resist the Cranes since I first caught wind of their activities. The daimyo's stomach turned. He didn't like having no idea what was happening. Harbin, what are you up to? It's not like you to use my name to back your messages and mislead people, especially when I'm one of those people. So now the only immediate question, said Gaara, is do we intercept the Cranes' forces or wait for them here in Tsuna? Both strategies have their advantages, but… A tall ninja in a featureless mask strode into the command tent, moving right past the sentry at the door who looked too stupefied to offer any resistance. Neither, he interrupted Gaara, his voice oily and icy but not unkind. Harbin? Asked Gaara. This new arrival was identical to the Earth spy in all but voice. Sakura and all of the newly allied leaders turned to face him if they hadn't already, and the pink-haired Kunoichi suddenly felt ill. She hid the expression of disgust that threatened to break across her face, but something about the new arrival smelled of death and decay. Smelled was not the right word, she realized. The new arrival had no scent, but something about him felt horribly wrong. Everyone, said the Earth daimyo, this is another of my top agents. His name is Amato and he's been my personal and faithful servant for more than a decade. Harbin is said the ninja in the mask. Itachi killed him when your spies intercepted the Crane's army. The room immediately fell silent as the ninja went on. Harbin had asked that I tail him and Naruto in case something should happen to either one so I could finish their report. In brief, Harbin and Naruto ked kiss him, but Harbin was then ked by Itachi. Naruto, blurted Sakura, her gut twisting anew. Where's Naruto? Captured, said Amato without a hint of emotion. Itachi defeated him and took him away. Last I saw, they were headed for the Rain Village, but I can't be sure. Now, the good news is that Itachi, before he left, ordered his troops to turn northern. Sakura's breath caught and she slumped in the folding chair in which she sat. Naruto's been captured, it didn't seem quite real. She listened with only minimal interest as Amato went on to explain that from the looks of things Itachi's army, now leaderless, had turned and begun advancing towards another invasionary force moving towards Iwa. Even as Sakura began formulating her plan to find and rescue Naruto, completely ignoring the fact that her plan to herself to Itachi had just been rendered unnecessary. Amato went on to state that it was his advice to intercept Itachi's army and destroy it, then move on to bolster Iwa's forces and overwhelm the Crane's army while sending the non-combatants and refugees to the underground tunnels beneath Suna to make the village appear abandoned. If Naruto's in the Rain Village, thought Sakura, her thoughts turning over, that puts him at the heart of the Crane, and Akatsuki's power. Trying to get him out by myself would be but if I take any kind of strike force it would definitely be caught. She ignored that her allies neither could nor would release her from her duty to make a rescue attempt. She breathed a sigh and slumped a little lower. There probably wasn't any way to get to Naruto now except the old-fashioned way, sing her way through the Crane's armies, and the most expedient way to do that was to do what she was doing now. She began to listen more closely. Naruto, she thought, I'm sorry I can't get to you sooner. She felt no noticeable pang of guilt even when she realized how quickly she'd contemplated desertion. Amato, after the council had reached the conclusion that they would march out to meet Itachi's forces before they could unite with the force moving to attack Iwa, had taken his leave with the Earth Daimyo's permission to follow up on some other information. The ninja in the mask stepped outside of the command tent and into the desert surrounding Suna. The sprawling camp that had been erected outside the village's walls had already begun to stink of sweat and sewage, but the smell did little to bother him. Finding an empty tent from which to work, Amato stood silent for a minute and then pressed his gloved hands together into a simple but foreign seal. Instantly he shattered like two-dimensional glass into absolute nothingness, and the space immediately around him melted like wax before reforming into the perfect image it had been before. No measurable amount of time later, the ninja, calling himself Amato, though now he wore a twisted orange mask and one of Akatsuki's trademark robes and would call himself Madara, appeared out of nothingness without so much as a puff of air inside another tent. This time, however, the ground beneath his feet was hard-packed earth instead of sand. Standing in front of him and still unaware of Madara's presence was Zetsu, staring into space and presumably keeping track of events in the camp outside Iwa's defensive network of spies via the listening tendrils he could lace through the ground. Good morning, said Madara. Zetsu twitched. I don't dare tell you to stop doing that, said the spy. What can I do for you? Madara ignored the declarative statement and focused on the question. Tell me how things are progressing. Exactly as you predicted, said Zetsu. Iwa's defenses are formidable even without the daimyo or the bulk of their forces, but if we begin the invasion before the week is out as planned, we should be able to take the city with minimal loss on our side. He watched the ninja in the orange mask for a moment. You're about to change my orders though, I assume. I want you to monitor the Kazekige's allied forces, said Madara, his voice somber. Keep close tabs on their movements while I send Konan, Hiden, and Kakazu to lead the assault on Iwa tomorrow morning. Itachi's army will be wiped out completely, but that is neither important nor avoidable. What does matter is that Iwa will burn, we will soon have the Haruno girl, and Naruto is safely in our hands. You will keep me informed. Madara disappeared before Zetsu could even acknowledge the orders. Many hours later, they at least could have warmed the table up, Naruto thought. He lay strapped to the steel table with thick leather straps across his wrists, ankles, and abdomen. Normally the restraints would have done less to hold him than soggy tissue paper, but he felt all of his strength, chakra-fueled and natural, being drained by the glowing blue rune on the low ceiling above him. This could be bad, he heard Kyuubi's voice echoing inside of his head. No matter what we try, that rune just absorbs everything we throw at it. One good thing that had come of the battle with Itachi, Naruto thought it was the only good thing, was that somehow Kyuubi had been resealed into Naruto in such a way that the previous ability to interact had been restored. Naruto's sensitivity to the demonic chakra had been eliminated and the two had been working ever since Naruto woke up to break free of their prison. Even with the demon's chakra newly re-accessible, the task was proving impossible. That rune is Maiban and specifically crafted by the old priestly class to contain demon-possessed prisoners, said Kyuubi. I doubt we'll be able to overcome it with sheer brute force. I was about to reach the same conclusion, Naruto thought grimly. I guess this means they're going to tee us to death or do something just as unpleasant to see what information they can wring out of me. Naruto had just woken up from his Tsukiyomi-induced coma and he thought that compared to that, there was little more anyone could do to make him even remotely uncomfortable, even as he streaked USD the wicked instruments laying in a metal pan on a table beside him. He was already aware that he, or more accurately Kyuubi, had worn Itachi down to nothing and the Uchiha would thus be unable to carry out the gruesome interrogation personally. Naruto felt Kyuubi's silent affirmation. I can shield you from the bulk of any pain as I've done before and it is my plan to do so. As long as that rune is active I think the most we can do is, the demon practically spat the next phrase, wait for rescue. The door to the dingy little room creaked open as someone, Naruto didn't bother to turn his head to see who, stepped inside. There was only one set of footsteps and they treaded lightly and Naruto caught himself assuming they were made by a woman. Surprise flitted across his face when a very large figure wearing an orange mask and an Akatsuki robe stood over him and made it impossible for Naruto not to look up at him. Good evening, said Madara, his voice almost cheery in a twisted sort of way. My name is Uchiha Madara and I'll be your interrogator tonight. How are you doing today? Uchiha Madara, Naruto asked, feeling a twinge of surprise from Kyuubi. Shouldn't you be? Or ancient? Asked Madara as he walked around the table, staring down at Naruto with his Sharingan eye. Probably, but then again I might not be Madara. I might be messing with your head. Then again it might not really matter. Not much does at this point. Naruto watched as the masked ninja picked up a scalpel, street USD it for a moment, then set it down and picked up a pair of forceps. What does matter then? Asked Naruto as Madara picked up a pair of needle-nosed pliers. Madara didn't answer immediately. He took a firmer grip on the pliers and then looked down at Naruto. You're an interesting individual, Naruto, he said. Madara reached with the pliers and with them gripped Naruto's left thumbnail. In a quick jerk he wrenched the nail from Naruto's finger and instantly Naruto grunted, forcing himself not to howl in pain. Tears welled in his eyes as quickly as blood welled in the wound. Before he said anything Madara jerked another of Naruto's fingernails free of him and dropped it to the floor. This time Naruto couldn't hold back the screams of pain and immediately he wondered what had become of Kyuubi's promise to shield him from the pain. Naruto wondered also what had become of Kyuubi himself as the demon was completely absent. My master plan, said Madara quite matter-of-factly, is to bring all life on this planet to heal under myself. He sped out the nail of Naruto's little finger with a flick of his wrist. Now to that end I've assembled one of the largest unified armies since the Maiban Empire. My forces, of which I've revealed barely a fraction, are quite capable of squashing all resistance in this part of the world. Having finished with the left hand, Madara began spinning the nails from the fingers of Naruto's right hand. The problem is that elsewhere in the world, in places untamed by the Maibans and unprotected by their barriers, there exist dangers the likes of which no one since the Maibans has ever seen. That is where you come in. He set the pliers aside and sat down on a stool beside the table, seemingly ignoring the tears which were threatening to spill over the edges of Naruto's eyes. The blonde ninja, teeth locked together and pain screwing his face into a knot, sneered at the man in the mask. I'm not helping you, ever. He drew in a quick breath. I was hoping you'd express resistance to the idea. Madara got up from the stool and walked around the table, removing a roll of parchment from his sleeve and unfurling it. As much fun as playing with you happens to be, he continued, you're just too tough, physically anyway, for any kind of tea to be effective in breaking you down. He turned the scroll around and Naruto's already strained breath caught. Scrawled across the parchment was a picture of Sakura. So I'm going to capture the Haruno girl, whom you've already hurt so much, and I'm going to hurt her some more, and then some more, and then some more, right in front of you. In fact, I'm going to keep hurting her until you agree to help me, and you'll only be able to blame yourself if she happens to under T because you weren't willing to let her off the hook. SC. 1 week later, surveying the battlefield, Sasuke breathed a sigh. There was no relief in it, not really, the S in which he'd just taken part, that is. Itachi's army had been leaderless after all, which meant that the victory the coalition, as Gaara and the other leaders, the council, had decided to call their makeshift alliance, had won was all but meaningless. Still, Sasuke took some pleasure in the fact that several full regiments worth of soldiers would never reach the Crane forces at Iwa. Stretching in front of the Uchiha for numerous acres were unceremonious piles of the S, stacked 5 and sometimes 6 or 7 feet tall. There was no uniformity to the mass grave. Some piles stood alone with no trace of the battle within a dozen yards them, and some piles were grouped in small colonies. As much as Sasuke tried to convince himself otherwise, the sight nearly made him sick. Not a bad start, said a chirpy voice from behind him. But there's still a lot more work to do. Sasuke turned around on the small hill from which he'd shouted orders to the troops the Wind Daimyo had put under his command. Behind him the sisters had separated themselves from the army they'd just led to success. It was Trina who'd spoken. Her hair shimmered red in the evening sunset, both because of its natural pigments and the blood spattered across her. Gaara-sama says he wants us to start marching for Iwa. The leaders think that if we move through the night we can get there by morning. If we manage that, we'll be able to enter the city and reinforce the garrison before the Crane even gets there. That's good news, said Sasuke, smiling. He watched as Karena's and Alicia's faces fell. But now you're about to give me some bad news. Trina continued undeterred. None of the spies we sent out to get the lay of the land from here on out have come back. We know where the Crane was yesterday, and we know what Iwa's condition was as of yesterday, but we don't know what kind of state either one is in today, and we won't until we get there. Do we have any ideas who is king our spies? Asked Sasuke. Trina shook her head. No sir, we don't. Gaara seems to think that Akatsuki is to blame and no one has any better ideas, but with the spies themselves we have no way to know for sure. Also the Wind Daimyo wants you to attend the meeting he's called in the command tent. Understood. Sasuke looked behind him at the battlefield, and the sun setting beyond it one more time and sighed. Let's get moving then, he said to the sisters. If we're supposed to make it to Iwa by morning, then we'll need to leave immediately. Get all of the troops under our command assembled and in a marching column, and as soon as the council gives the order, start cracking whips at their heels. Trina gave Sasuke a little salute, acknowledging the order, then turned around with Alicia and jogged down the side of the little hill towards the mass of troops and small clusters of tents said hill overlooked. Karena waited as Sasuke adjusted the thick leather belt around his waist, then stepped up beside him. The uniform looks good on you, she said, smiling genuinely and nudging his hand with the backs of her fingers. Shows off your backside. Sasuke grinned and took her hand in his, leather gauntlet creaking as he did. It's still a little stiff, but I think I could get used to it. Sasuke looked down at himself for an instant, reflecting on the events of the past week, and secretly admiring how the Titan outfit with the gold accents caught the light of the sun. The captain's uniform gave him a sense of pride, though he'd never admit it to anyone. Who would have thought that the Daimyo of the Wind would make me a captain? He asked. Even with Sakura turning the position down, I expected him to give it to you or one of your sisters. He recognized your talent, said Karena as the two ninja began strolling, both knowing that they had at least an hour before the order to move out would be issued, down towards the army's current position. He recognized that I'd served as one of Orochimaru's chief lieutenants for 3 years, muttered the Uchiha, his tone bordering on cynicism. I guess that counts for something. It does, Karena broke in. Even when you were fighting off a mind-binding seal that sapped all of your willpower and strength, you still managed to be a major thorn in the side of some of the most powerful people in the world. That's saying something, I think. And now that you've proven yourself as a good leader here, everyone is going to see exactly what you're capable of and reward you accordingly. You make it all sound so matter of fact, said Sasuke as the couple passed by one of the barricades that had been erected to protect the makeshift camp. It is matter of fact, the Kunoichi grinned. Sasuke and Karena found their way to the command tent and all of the coalition's leaders inside. Stepping through the flaps of the tent, Sasuke released Karena's hand and mouthed goodbye. The kunoichi gave him a quick hug and turned to leave to find her sisters and help them prepare for the night's march. She knew the drill. The troops would form up into marching columns and the ninja would run in shifts around the perimeter of the columns in gradually expanding and contracting patterns to watch for threats to the army. It was an effective set of maneuvers, but the constant movement tended to drain the patrolling ninja. Sasuke found the leaders of the coalition sitting around the blocky table in the center of the tent. Everyone but Gaara acknowledged him with a brief nod in his direction, and Sasuke bowed respectfully before taking his seat to the right of the wind daimyo, directly across from Sakura. "We're all here then," said the earth daimyo, halting all of the smaller conversations that had been taking place and focusing all attention on himself. "Let's keep this brief then." The tanned man glanced around the table at his peers and subordinates, before continuing. "We're going to march through the night with the aim of reaching Iwa by 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, hopefully before Akatsuki's armies have a chance to properly organize themselves. If we can make it in time, we're going to bring the bulk of our forces into Iwa itself and bolster it from the inside. If the crane has begun its attack by the time we arrive, as they're apt to have done given the last known positions of their formations, we're to act as a relief force." Gaara spoke up from his side of the table. "Sounds simple enough," he said dryly. "What's the catch?" "None that we can foresee," answered the earth daimyo. "It should be a fairly simple engagement, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy." He turned to the pale woman from the bird country. "Sure, I can explain why." The woman in the multicolored robe cleared her tea. 6 hours ago I sent out 10 reconnaissance crows to try and get feel for what we were going to be up against," said Shirai, her voice like a flute. "Only 2 returned, but those that did had gotten a visual on the crane's army's location and numbers. Their maneuverings are what we could expect from an army that size, and they have moved into position to besiege Iwa. At this point we can't tell if they'll have time to begin before we arrive or not, but that's not the issue. We grossly underestimated their numbers." "How many?" asked the wind daimyo, no hint of apprehension in his voice as he reached for a plate of pastries sitting on the table. 15,000, said Shirai, "maybe more." Sasuke nearly choked. "They've got us outnumbered almost 2 to 1, said the Uchiha. "Even if Itachi isn't there, can we beat that? When Konoha was under attack by Orochimaru during your war with Sound," said the Fang representative addressing both Sasuke and Sakura, looking between the two, "you were outnumbered more than 10 to 1 and still won a decisive victory. Can't this be a repeat performance?" Sakura shook her head. "Back then Konoha had literally hundreds of ninja," she said. "If memory serves, we had the city garrisoned with 300 or more at the time of Sound's invasion. We don't have even half that now. But we should still have more ninja," said the wind daimyo. "So doesn't that even the odds at least some?" "Maybe," said the earth daimyo, "unless Akatsuki has brought more ninja than we expect to bear." "Which they very well could have," said Shirai, shifting and shimmering just a little as her colorful robes caught the light streaming into the crimson tent. "But even if they have, so what? What we lack in numbers we more than make up for in quality. My men at least are armed to the teeth and absolutely solid." Sasuke had to give her that. He'd watched the Shirai command her troops from the bird country today and marveled at how stalwart and wickedly sly an army modeled after something as stereotypically dainty as a bird could be. Then again, he thought, I guess there are some pretty mean birds out there. The bird country's troops had done the bulk of the work on the battlefield and reported only 1 casualty. "Quality can only take us so far," said Sakura. "Unlike the crane, we only have 1 army to draw on. It doesn't matter if we win at Iwa if the effort CSPLES us," she paused. "But still, I don't see any alternative. Iwa is well supplied," said the earth daimyo. "Whatever losses we suffer there can be at least lightened by the village's stores. Equipment can be easily replaced and manpower can be restored by pressing the village's citizens into service. Given the circumstances, I don't think anyone would complain too much about it." All around the table murmurs broke out about the potential consequences of such caution. Sensing the building tension, Gaara spoke. "The people probably won't require much coercion to join the army. It's either that or be wiped out by Akatsuki and the crane." Given the choice, the table grew quiet again. "Then it's settled," said the wind daimyo. "As soon as the troops are ready to move out, we march for Iwa and attack the crane head-on." Sasuke watched the expressions around the table with guarded interest as the wind daimyo got to his feet and dismissed the assembly. Everyone else stood at their own paces and began to leave the tent. Walking out into the evening sun, Sasuke felt a tap on his shoulder, turned, and smiled at Sakura. "You looked bored in there," said the kunoichi. Sasuke glanced around to make sure none of the leaders were within earshot and sighed. It seemed like a waste of time. We didn't discuss anything anyone didn't already suspect. "Welcome to being an officer," said Sakura. "Get used to it." She smiled at him. "How are you feeling?" Sasuke shrugged. "I'm good actually, anxious to get on the move. I want to get this fight over with so we can hurry up and get to the Rain Village to rescue Naruto." Sakura grimaced. "Same here, I can't believe no one on the council even gave it a second thought when he was captured. Then when I brought it up it was like a non-issue to them." "They have a war to fight," said Sasuke. "I spoke with the sisters though and all three of them are chomping at the bit to get to the rain and get Naruto back. There's just nothing the five of us can on our own do that would be constructive. We have to wait for the council to attack if we want to stand any kind of chance." Sakura nodded. "We'll get him. As soon as we secure Iwa I'm going to press for a direct assault on Rain. I already know for a fact that Gaara will back me up and the Fang and Claw representatives expressed approval when I mentioned the idea to them. Everyone I talk to feels that taking Rain, and hopefully CS peeling Akatsuki in the process, will end the war before it has a chance to turn into a long, dragging campaign." "That's how I see it," said Sasuke, feeling his shoulders tighten just a little as the urge to do something, anything productive, crept into his mind. He didn't like waiting around on other people. "So how are you and Karena doing?" asked Sakura, completely out of the blue and letting her face break into a wide smile. "You two have gotten pretty close pretty fast." Sasuke instantly blushed and reflexively dug at the earth a bit with the toe of his boot. "All right," he said. Sakura grinned. Once the war was all said and done, if everyone survived, she was going to have to get together with the brown-haired kunoichi for some girl time. "SC. My army was completely wiped out." Itachi's voice was as cool and as collected as ever, but to Pain's trained ears, the anger underneath the ice was obvious. Pain's main body, the most powerful model, didn't shift away from the door. "That is unfortunate," he said in a serpentine voice. "But it is exactly as Madara-sama predicted. There is no reason for you to see him over it." Itachi scowled. "First I was never made aware that he knew my men would all be ked, and now I suddenly need a reason to see Madara. What's going on?" Madara is busy. The already dark hallway of the Rain Village's citadel seemed to grow even darker. "You are going to step aside and let me pass," said Itachi. "Madara-sama said you'd say that. Then he must have also told you that I will kill you if you don't let me through." Pain was silent for a moment, then slowly stepped away from the big wooden door and gestured with his hand for Itachi to pass. The Uchiha calmly opened the door, completely ignoring Pain, and stepped into the small cramped study where Madara sat in a high-backed chair facing away from Itachi, poring over a scroll on the desk before him. Beside the scroll sat the orange mask. "Madara-san," said Itachi, stopping in the center of the room. "I need a moment." "And some etiquette," said Madara, reaching for the mask and quickly sliding it over his face. He swiveled in the chair and faced Itachi, crossing his legs and resting his face on his knuckles. "But I'm in a good mood and I have a spare moment, so I suppose you can have it if you ask nicely." The door to the office slammed shut, seemingly of its own will. "I thought you told me my men would make it safely to Iwa where they'd join up with the others," said Itachi. The elder Uchiha shrugged once. "And they were all ked, intercepted by a large, well-organized army and annihilated." "And." Itachi took a moment to suppress the urge to adopt a biting demeanor and continued calmly. "Those men represented almost a tenth of our total force. The army at Iwa makes up almost 40% of our combined armies. I want to know why you suddenly decide to throw away 10% of our men and thusly endanger almost half of the rest when we're already spread thinner than anyone would advise. We used all of our strength to wipe out the smaller countries so the bigger ones would be less of a threat and tired our men in the process. Why are we being so reckless?" "Itachi," said Madara, his voice full of mock surprise. "Have you grown a heart? Do you actually care about these, what did you call them, pawns?" Itachi shook his head. "I care about winning and receiving my reward, nothing more." "You haven't changed," said Madara. "But neither have I. All you need to know is that I will win, and you will receive your just desserts. He swiveled back away from Itachi. The younger of the two Uchiha didn't move. Why haven't we extracted the demon from Naruto? He asked. Madara reached out and snapped his fingers. Instantly Itachi vanished. Outside the citadel it was pouring rain and the streets of the nearly emptied village were, as they so often seemed to be lately, paved in several inches of mud and pockmarked with giant puddles, some a foot or more deep. The winds howled so loud that the sound was completely obscured when Itachi materialized a few feet above the road and splashed down in one of the deeper puddles. The Uchiha's expression didn't alter in the slightest as he tugged his cloak a little tighter around his lean frame and stepped out of the small pond, but his black eyes burned when he turned them up at the citadel. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.